Today's video is brought to you by Storyblocks. It took me quite some time to figure out that it was actually possible to have the action button trigger different actions depending on which way I was holding my iPhone. It's one of those things you won't know until you've used your iPhone for some time. It's been 5 months with the 16 Pro Max for me, and I've got exactly 5 tips for making the most out of this iPhone. 5 tips which I really wish I knew earlier. The first has to do with the most powerful camera feature on the 16 Pro and Pro Max, and that's being able to shoot 4K video at 120 frames per second. However, you'll quickly hit 2 roadblocks if you're looking to shoot 120p in Apple Log. Though to be clear, 120p in Apple Log is entirely possible, and it gives you some of the best looking footage ever shot on iPhone. But within the stock camera app, Apple Log is only available when you shoot in ProRes, and for anything higher than 30 FPS, it won't let you shoot in ProRes unless you've connected external storage. So the pro tip is, use an alternative camera app to shoot 4K 120p Apple Log internally and in the HEVC codec instead of ProRes. This solves both problems we ran into. First, you no longer need to physically have an additional piece of hardware in order to shoot 120p log, and second, the file sizes for HEVC were around 27 times smaller than ProRes for me. You see, the stock camera app, when you connect an external SSD, records 4K 120p in ProRes 422HQ. That typically exceeds 4 GB per 10 seconds of video. In contrast, the same duration in HEVC is only around 150 megabytes. There's at least 3 apps off the top of my head which lets you shoot 4K 120 in HEVC. One of them is Apple's very own Final Cut camera. This app is entirely free, and so is Blackmagic Camera. In addition to letting you shoot Apple Log in 120p internally, all these apps also let you monitor that log footage with a LUT. The app I personally use is a paid app called Kino. It lets me bake a LUT of my choice into the footage, but in case I want both graded and log versions, it's also possible with Kino to export a copy with the LUT applied after shooting. That 120p advantage really hits when you need to stretch out a moment, which happens quite too quickly. This was looking out the window of a bullet train, and the time window to get a clear shot of Mount Fuji wasn't much at all. But slowing down this 120p footage means my moments now last 5 times longer than real time. I wanted to get more footage of Mount Fuji, maybe without pillars whizzing by every few seconds, but when I wasn't looking at it from a train window, it was way too cloudy to get anything close to these shots you're looking at right now. These shots you're looking at are from Storyblocks, and in terms of footage options, there's far more than what I could have possibly captured on my own. It's exactly times like these when I count on Storyblocks to get a piece of B-roll I'm simply not able to capture myself. It's one of those rare things which saves you effort, but also adds production value. Many of the animations I've been using recently are motion templates I got also from Storyblocks. That social handle animation that's in the end of all my videos since 2020, that was also from Storyblocks. I'm not exaggerating when I say each asset I use from Storyblocks saves me hours of work. Best part is, you get unlimited downloads with a monthly or annual subscription from a library of over 1 million 4K or HD clips, thousands of motion templates, but it also includes music, sound effects, and images, all for just 1 subscription. There's an official plugin for Adobe Creative Cloud, which lets you access the entire Storyblocks stock library from within Premiere Pro and After Effects, saving you even more time. Also, anything you download from Storyblocks is 100% royalty-free. The licenses are granted in perpetuity, meaning they never expire, and they'll even whitelist your channel on YouTube to reduce the likelihood of claims. To get started with unlimited stock media downloads at 1 set price, head to storyblocks.com/ZYProductions or click the link in description. The second tip is going to sound like a very obvious solution to an inconvenience, but until you figure it out, it can be quite frustrating. When you try to mount your iPhone 16 using any sort of phone clamp, because of where the camera control sits, it is extremely likely that the phone mount will accidentally perform a half press on camera control, especially if you've got a case on. So what I do before mounting my iPhone is temporarily disable camera control. The option is buried under the accessibility page in settings. Scroll down to camera control and turn that first toggle off. Now, when you click camera control, it does absolutely nothing as if it wasn't there. Just remember to re-enable it afterwards so you don't miss a shot wondering why camera control's not launching your camera. My next tip is more of an awareness thing, and it has to do with the ultra-wide camera. On the 16 Pro and Pro Max, the ultra-wide defaults to just 12 megapixels, unlike the main Fusion camera which defaults to 24 megapixels, despite the ultra-wide also having a quad-pixel 48 megapixel sensor. So most of the time we're not really making full use of its resolution, which is why, if you have not done so already, I highly recommend turning on the Pro RAW and resolution control toggle in your camera settings, which is under the Formats tab. Here I've also set my Pro default to HEIF max, and that makes this toggle appear in the corner of your camera interface. Once you tap on that, your ultra-wide photos will be in 48 megapixels. I like to go with the HEIF max format because it still lets me use photographic styles, but if you prefer Pro RAW, you can give that toggle a long press and select RAW max instead. Two things to note is night mode shots will always be in 12 megapixels regardless, and if you kick into macro mode from the 1x camera, it's a crop of the ultra-wide camera being sampled in high resolution mode, so you're getting the maximum possible detail. Item number 4 is a bit of a PSA about audio mix. It's one of the coolest features introduced with the iPhone 16 lineup, but to my knowledge, it won't be available if you record video with a third-party camera app. This is because the audio mix feature requires sound to be recorded in the spatial audio format, so if you're planning to make use of this, record using the stock camera app, and make sure under camera settings, record sound, you've got spatial audio selected, which is the default. When you record in spatial audio, it's fully backwards compatible with traditional stereo, because if you poke into the metadata, it actually encodes 2 streams of audio, a 2-channel stereo stream plus an additional 4 channels of spatial audio. So when you pop it into most editing software, it should just pick up on the good old stereo stream. Bonus fun fact, when you record video in cinematic mode, your iPhone defaults its audio mix to the cinematic preset. Now for my final trick, getting the action button to do different things depending on the orientation of my device. I do this because I want the action button to launch Kino for shooting Apple log video, while to launch the original camera app, I can just click camera control. At the same time though, I wasn't quite willing to give up using the action button to toggle silence mode. It's a bit greedy, I admit, but it is possible by assigning the action button to run this custom shortcut, allowing it to do double duty. You can set this up in the Shortcuts app on your iPhone. At the heart of it is this function called Get Orientation. We'll then go to Scripting and select If. So if orientation is, we'll select Landscape Left, and we'll tap the plus icon to add another condition, which will be Landscape Right. We'll now search for the Open App command and move that just above the line that says Otherwise. Tap on App to choose what app we want the action button to open in landscape mode. For me, that's going to be Kino. And now it's time to search for Set Silence Mode and move it just under Otherwise. Tap on the variable Turn and change it to Toggle. And for good measure, I'm also going to add an instance of Vibrate Device to the second half of this, just so I get different haptics depending on which function I've triggered. I know there's quite a bit of setup involved, so I'll also include a link to download the shortcuts I've made in case you're interested to try it out on your iPhone. Just remember, you need to bind this shortcut to your action button under the Settings app, Action button, scroll over to Shortcut, and choose the shortcut. And that's 5 things I've picked up over the course of 5 months using my iPhone 16 Pro Max. If you've got some tips of your own and don't mind not gatekeeping them, I would love to learn from you in the comments. Till then, I'll see you around.